Welcome to another episode of the Myokinetix podcast. Today we have a special guest, Frank Schwindel. And if you guys know, he's a local Jersey guy who has just been grinding it as his pro baseball career and obviously has some really, really good success part of his journey. And now he's with us and he's going to share some wisdom. So Frank, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So before we get going, man, let's just tell the listener a little bit about your background because obviously you're pretty low key. You're not big into social media. So I think this is a good time for the listener to kind of get to know like about your journey and who you are.
All right. We'll go long story short. Grew up in Livingston, right down the road. Went to Livingston High School, played baseball 4 years. Went to St. John's University in Queens, where I got drafted after my junior year to Kansas City. Was in that system for about 7 years, then brief stint with the Tigers, brief stint with Oakland, caught on with the Cubs, and then now just signed a contract to play in Japan. So long road, been going at it, a little over 10 seasons now, and just keeping the dream alive.
Wow. So let's break it down piece by piece because obviously when you mentioned like that, it's like, wow, it's been a long career.
Long journey.
So let's talk about your favorite bagel spot in Livingston, I think.
All right. I mean, Donut Basket, it's a standard right on Route 10 right there. I grew up, a block or two away from there. And Mrs. O, rest in peace, an unbelievable lady. She took care of me and the guys for years. And, the new owners have been great too. But, great bagel, great Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. That's
it. Got to shout out the local service. So how was it getting recruited out of high school into St. John? Did you get an offer? Or how was it? How's the recruiting back then?
I had It was interesting because I had a couple pro teams interested at the time. I was still catching, which was just huge for draft stock, stuff like that. But, it was not as recruited for college as most guys. So, I had a couple options to go other places, but St. John's was definitely the best program and the best opportunity. So they started recruiting me sophomore year, but, the coach lives a couple towns away. So I played against, a lot of his guys that he had, Seton Hall Prep. We played them every year, so it helps, play in the best competition to get seen. But I signed or committed with them my junior year, and then it kind of went from there. It was a great program, and everything worked out.
So you mentioned you were catching then as well. So obviously with the most kids that I've seen we have worked with now, they're super specialized extremely early, and they're all in on baseball probably by like freshman year in high school. So was it the same back then when you were starting out, or like were all your peers doing the same thing? Was it as competitive then as it is now?
It was. There was all those, scout teams, select teams, all stuff like that. But I did a couple of those, but we had a great group of guys. And, I think we had 3 guys from my senior year and junior year go D1, a couple guys D3. So we had a great lineup, and, we were beating everybody around here. So we're like, I'm going to play with my friends as long as I can. But then, a couple select teams, or, I played with Jack Cust. I'm sure you guys heard of them, at Diamond Nation for 2 or 3 seasons. A couple of those things with the tournaments. I played for the Kansas City Royal Scout team for one fall. But I wanted to play with my Livingston guys as much as I could. Like I said, we were good, and we had a good time doing it. So it's a big part of it now because it's getting huge with all the, crazy expensive select teams. Go down to East Cobb, go down to Jupiter. Which is also a great way to get seen. But they always say if you're good enough, they're going to find you somewhere.
Yeah, and I say that too. Like, it doesn't matter where you go. If you're talented, people will come see you. I mean, we had 2 years ago one kid out of Caldwell, Verona, that just got drafted out of high school, and he went to public school. And I think,
awesome.
I think it's great. You can go to private school and you get obviously seen, better competition, but it's not needed.
Right.
Yeah. So as you transition to your, obviously college career, what was that transition like from going from high school to college?
It was tough, but it also helped being around a great program and a lot of guys that were supportive. But it's tough going from the best player in town to not starting. It's a tough transition where we had a 5th-year senior catching and a 5th-year senior at first base. So it's like I knew I wasn't going to start every day. But, just kept grinding and ended up being, playing half the games, which is nice. I caught a bunch, DH'd a couple, and it's a situation where you obviously want to be the guy, you want to be the starter, but you go from being the best to, being just another guy in college. And a lot of guys, don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, it's grinding every day. It's putting the work in, the weight room, the cages, stuff like that. And, finally getting an opportunity, having an okay freshman year, but then, really taking off my sophomore year and junior year. So.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that, though, because that's a transition curve where everybody has to go through. Like, even me as a PT, like, when I first came out as a PT, it's like, obviously, I'm so fresh, I don't know much. And then as I learn more and more, I become more seasoned, but then I start my own practice, and now
Right.
I work with, bigger name guys. Now I have to learn even more. So I feel like I'm starting all over again. So how did you deal with being the guy and then going to school and then have to rebuild that again? Because, again, like they say the journey is like you climb up to the top just to see there's another mountain that you have to climb up again.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that in college and also at a professional level?
No, it's definitely tough, but if you think about it, it's every year in baseball, because it's like you're the guy and then you either get promoted or you get sent home. So it's like you got to keep grinding. You get promoted, even whether it's rookie ball to A ball, but then there's guys that have already been there, guys returning. So it's like you kind of just got to prove yourself every single level. I was AAA All-Star a couple of times and then go up to the big leagues and I'm hitting ninth, like stuff like that. So it's like you just got to keep proving yourself every year. But it's about keeping the same mindset that, you're good enough to keep going this far. And it's really just belief in yourself. It's like the game doesn't change. It's just, pitching gets a little better. The players get a little better, but you're still the same guy. So it's just putting the work in. And it's more mental than physical at that point. It's just believing that you're good enough to be there to keep going. And But like I said, it's not easy going from being the man to just another guy. But it's just the mindset of grinding from there.
How do you keep yourself, I guess, on those dark days where you're like, all right, man, this is tough. What were there any tactics, anything that you use to kind of like talk yourself through? Or like for me personally, right, if I have a bad day or we're not performing well in certain thing, I always say like I allow myself 24 hours just to cry about it. And then after that, at the end of 24-hour mark, I have to come up with some sort of plan to then keep it moving. Like, how did you personally have that kind of hard conversation with yourself?
Right, it's tough. Some of those drive home from the field is just a long drive. 20 minutes seem like 2 hours sometimes, but just swimming in your own head. But that's the thing. It's real tough to just let it go right away. So I was always fine with just thinking about it, obviously being pissed off for a while, maybe watch some video of seeing what you could have done different. But it's just a game where you can't let it get to you, because, if you turn one bad game into a bad week, turns into a bad month, and then, you look up like, man, I really pissed away that whole month, where, if you get a couple more quality at-bats in there, just from not being in your own head, it's a big part of it. But it's just, bouncing back, knowing you're going to get 4 more at-bats the next day or the next day. And, the best players in the game, like even, Mike Trout had an 0 for 30 stretch this year, and he ended up hitting, 300 again. So it's like stuff like that. It's a tough game, but I think everybody has to go through some sort of struggles at some point, and it's just the guys that get over it the quickest are going to be the best in the game.
Mm-hmm. I feel like in baseball, they don't often talk enough about the struggle. In other sport, in football, people talk about struggle all the time. Baseball, I wonder why they don't talk about it as much. Maybe the season's too long and people don't want to hear you complain, and you have such quick turnaround. I think the quickest turnaround, that's probably the hardest part. Like, so, obviously when you were in AA, AAA, like traveling is not as luxurious as being an MLB. You're busting everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's long hours. You're sitting. Then you got to warm up. Then you got and you got to get up the next day. Like, how do you establish your routine to match the grueling schedule?
That one's tough. I mean, AA, even single A at least, we had some 14-hour bus ride and you got to play the next day and stuff like that, where it's like, you sleep till as long as you can, and then get to the field and fire it up again. So that's where taking care of yourself really it's not easy, but you just got to do it. And some of these you just got to grind through it. Even like the PCL, the Pacific Coast League, we had 3 a.m. wake ups to get to the airport for the first flight out, and 5 or 6 o'clock flight to a connection, and get into the city that we're playing around 1, get to the field by 3, and then you got to play at 7, stuff like that. So that's the mental part that really gets breaks people down. But it's like I said, you got to take care of yourself, and it's really on your own, because the trainers can only do so much for you, and what you're eating, what you're putting in yourself, what your hydration levels are. It plays a big part of it, and those are the grindiest days you can imagine. But it's not No, it's just part of it. You just got to get through it.
Was it talk about all where you prep it all, like transition from like college to pros, where you're like, all right, guys, you're about to go up into this league. Here's how I need you to take care of yourself. Or is this just a learning process?
No, just wing it. Especially in rookie ball, we're making $250 every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a Sonic across the street and a sub shop. So that's really all we could afford at the time. So it's just like, man, maybe at least get the grilled chicken or there or something.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that. But a lot of it, we're just on your own. It's just like, I went from playing, in St. John's and Queens to my first year was out in Idaho Falls in the Pioneer League.
Oh, my God.
So it's like playing Idaho,
it's cold.
Utah. Yeah, it's cold up there. And then Colorado Springs where it's like, 14-hour bus ride. And it's just crazy. But we weren't really prepared for it. But we were all in the same boat. We had a great team that first year, which everybody was helping each other out. But you got a mix of guys from everywhere. It's first rounder to the guys from North Carolina who you look up to playing against, and the Latin guys that are 17 that are already better than you, stuff like that. So no, it's just crazy, that transition. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was cool.
How did you have any one defining moment where you're like, all right, man, I really have to take care of my body now. Like it's I'm not healing. I'm not recovering like I used to. Like, so for me, for example, it's like I can't go out and have any drinks anymore just because the next day I'm like dead. Yeah,
no, it's tough. I'd say the first time was probably in AAA, where I was just like, shit, I need to start like stretching more a little bit or something, like where just the body wasn't bouncing back like it used to. Like, not only just, I would go out for a couple beers with the guys, whatever, but, some of those long flights, they start catching up. The back gets tight, the hammies get tight, stuff like that. But I feel like I never even had to stretch till I was about 25. Like, you just get out there, like, games at 7. We're in the clubhouse bullshit until, like, 6:45, roll out to the field, get a couple hits. So it's like, it was nice in that sense. But then, like, as you get older, as, 140-game season, those start adding up quicks. And, that's when you start to the prep work. And right now I don't touch a bat until I'm warmed up for about an hour. So it's like, even now this off season's been crazy. I'll hit the hot tub, get stretched out here. And then, like I said, I don't touch a bat for without that lengthy warm up. But still, I'm searching for, answers to find what works best. I travel a lot. So it's, getting on plane, getting off the plane, what's going to work that next day. Because it's, kind of simulating the season, trying to see what works in the off season and go from there. But it's tough. But there wasn't really a defining year where I had to figure it out. But I'd say right around 25 was right at, like, kick it into gear. Now I hit 30 and it's another gear of taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like 24 is when you hit like your first drop, and then 27. 27 is a rough year for everybody. And then like 30.
Oh yeah, but that's like, you want to go out and have a couple drinks with the guys after a game, and I'm like, I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's like we got an early day, stuff like that. But yeah, especially in Chicago, I just went home right to bed. We had those 1:00 games every weekend, so stuff like that. It adds up quick when you're playing every single day, and I think it's like a 162 game big league schedule in 180 days or something. So not many off days. Yeah.
No, and I mean, when you were telling me of like your schedule, like as soon as you finish the game, you have to get up early, batting practice, and it's just right on. Like it's, I think the game of baseball, like you have to have short memories, as in of how bad you did,
right?
So that way you can bounce back, or even how well you did,
right?
Because it's a different day.
Oh yeah, that's like kind of what we were saying before. It's like you don't have time to feel sorry for yourself in this game. Like you can go 0 for 4 and that guy doesn't feel bad for you on the mound tomorrow, or like you could have the game-winning home run. You still got to face this guy throwing 96 tomorrow on the mound. It's like it goes right back after. You really can't take a deep breath till that last game.
So, like just listening to you, and I my nervous system is like cranked up for you because it's a long season.
Yeah.
How do you take care of your body, like mentally and physically, right after the postseason? Just because you beat yourself up so much. Where with the pro guys that we work with in football, they have one game a week, and if they have a Sunday night game into a Thursday night game, that's like the worst case scenario because the turnaround time is so quick. But with you guys, it's like, all right, 3 games, rest one day. There's another game tomorrow. So how do you strategize that? Because like I'm just curious because I wouldn't know what to do.
Right. No, sometimes like you got those off days kind of locked in on your schedule. You're like, all right, I need to make it through 6, and then we could take a breather. Make it through 4, then an off day, then some of those stretches you get like 10, 12, whatever. I think we've had 27 in a row without an off day in the minors. So those days are just like, you're just, all right, just you're looking at the calendar and you're like, all right, let's just make it to the off day, whatever, play some golf or, get in the tubs and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's tough. It's a mental grind. That's why the off season's so nice. It's, it takes some time to travel and then find out what you need, get the plan to go from there. But you can kind of, everybody's different, but then you can kind of get your plan to how you want to get back into action. I had a bunch of rehab this year, so that was the whole first month. And then, start picking up the weights, start getting on the treadmill, stuff like that. But like you said, it's individualized, but a lot of guys, they take their travel time and they take their downtime seriously.
I think, this is a very similar concept to if you listen to any, I guess, world-class marathon runner, where all they do is they focus on the mile at a time, right? Same approach. Like, no one's thinking about, like, all right, what am I going to do in my 5th mile? They're just like, all right, when do I get to the next mile? How do I get to the next mile? And I think it pretty much is that, but in a longer term. As far as obviously how brutal the schedule is and everything else, how do you pretty much like build your own team? Because obviously it's important, right? I'm sure you have so many, there's so many people that you lean on when it comes to hitting and all of that stuff, rehab, and like how do you slowly start assimilating the people around you?
Oof, that's a good question. It's just finding out who you connect with and what works. So I've had the same trainer for about 5 years now. We're still making adjustments, whether it's, laying off the spine-loaded activities or, pushing hard based on, we'll fill out. I wear the ring to track the hydration and sleep and all that. So I won't go hard on days I'm not feeling good. So we've adjusted through that. But then it's like, I've had the same chiropractor for a couple of years for the, standard adjustments and, checking in, making sure everything's good. New physical therapist this year, which
shout out to Matt.
Matt's been great. Not only just, knowing what he's doing, but just hanging out with him for an hour a day. It's been great. Hitting coach right down the road. So it's nice. I got my whole team right within, 30-minute radius or 30-second radius pretty much. And, no, it's worked out pretty good, but just finding out what works for me and who I'm comfortable with, and it's